Well, good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This is Pastor Josh. You're watching Stepping Stones of Faith, Advent 2017. Today we are on December 11th, 2017. So today's December 11th, 2017. We are going through Love Came Down, a devotional by Lutheran Hour Ministries. And if you want one of these yourself, I did a tutorial video in the tutorial playlist about how to get these yourself. So watch that video and get one yourself if you desire to do so. So let's go here to our text. Today we're going to be in Luke chapter 1 verse 38. Now we had talked yesterday about the extra boost of faith. We need an extra boost of faith some days, you know. Today we're going to talk about serving others. The service to others is the true mark of a Christian. And I say, well, that's not, it's one of the true marks as a Christian. Maybe it's not the true mark. The true mark of the Christian is a born-again, believing, blood-bought person who loves Jesus. That's the true mark of a Christian. But with that comes service to others, loving one another, serving one another. So we're going to talk about service to others today. Our text, 1:38 of Luke 1:38. And Mary said, Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. And the angel departed from her. Now, we talked yesterday out of Luke chapter 1, 36 and 37. We talked about the doubt between, the differences of doubt between Zechariah and Mary. How Zechariah believed because of his old age he couldn't have children and didn't believe God, so he was stricken speechless, couldn't talk anymore for 9 months. Mary's doubt was not really a doubt. She said never been with a man before. How is she going to have a baby? She'd never been with a man before. Should she get married? Should she do these? So the angel had to talk with her a little bit and give her encouragement. And he said, her answer to that was, Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. And the angel departed from her. So she had the boost. She'd had the boost. We had talked about doubt yesterday. And we tend to doubt from time to time. We tend to doubt things. But God gives us a little bit of a promise. And he talked about, the angel talked about Elizabeth's pregnancy in her 6th month and gave that encouragement in his word. So guess what she does? She goes and stays with Elizabeth and Zechariah. She goes and stays with them. Now, she's doing two things here. She's accepting the encouragement of God, but she's also going and seeing, because there's a sign that says that it is a sign to Mary to go and see this firsthand, this promise of God. So she is solidifying her faith in going and staying with Zechariah and Elizabeth, right? But let's read what it says here. Mary says yes to the angel in a beautiful way. I am the servant of the Lord. She surrenders to God's will for her life. Let God do whatever he wants to do. It's okay with me. And that's something, this is a beautiful picture, not only of Mary saying to God, do as you will with your son in my life, in my body. Do with what you will with my body, with my. There's so much in a person's life that we have to deal with. Someone, she's saying to the angel of God, she's saying to God, have your way with me, with my body, with my social life, with my feelings, with my emotions, with my interpersonal relationships, with my to be husband, with my parents. Have your way with all of that. Because the reason I say that is because what happens with Joseph? Joseph wants to divorce her because he thinks she's been with someone else. And she's a young girl, she's a young girl. Now she's strapped with the responsibility of raising a child. She can't court Joseph in the way that they normally would have courted. She has to raise a child. She doesn't really say in here whether Mary had the support of her parents or not. What if she didn't have the support of her parents? At first she didn't have the support of Joseph, and Joseph had to be persuaded by God, the angel of God. So she was basically giving up basically everything that she knew, because God said, we're going to do this. I want to do this. You're found favor with me. I want you to raise my son. Now, she had given up all of that. She's by saying, let it be to me that you will. I am the Lord's servant. She's saying, I'm turning my back on society. I'm turning my back on what my parents will think. I'm turning my back on what Joseph will think. I'm turning my back on what anybody thinks, and I'm going to follow you. Right? It's exactly what she's saying. Because, listen, she's a virgin. Virgins, in the natural sense, don't come up pregnant and say, oh, I'm a virgin, and don't end up pregnant. There's a reason they end up pregnant. And this Joseph thought naturally what happened. She was with somebody else. Her parents. She was either with Joseph or with somebody else. She didn't have, it doesn't say she didn't, but it doesn't say she did either, have the support of her parents. But in a sense, she's giving all that up. She's giving all that up because of what society was like in those days. She was giving she was giving up all that support. And she went and she stayed with Elizabeth and Zechariah. Why? Because it was a place apart from her parents where she could safely come to adjustment to this promise. Now, what's the proof to Elizabeth? Now, Elizabeth could have said, well, how'd you end up pregnant? You could have, but God had already done something in Elizabeth. And the proof that it was truly of God for Elizabeth was when John the Baptist leapt in her womb. So there was no doubt in Elizabeth's mind that this was of God, from God, that the promise had happened. So they both were solidifying each other's faith, whereas in other circumstances, it could have been Joseph wanted to divorce her. It doesn't say whether her parents agreed with it or stood by her or not. But I'm sure in that economy, that way that things were done, I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure they probably had doubt. Okay? So understand, when she says this, she's giving up all of that. She's giving up all of that support. All of that support system is gone when she says this, and when this begins to happen. She gives up the support of her family. She gives up the support of her husband to be. She gives up support of that, and she goes and stays with Elizabeth, where they both can bring each other's faith to fruition. Okay? So, let's go on. Our culture today talks a lot about service and servant leadership. They become popular buzzwords. But for all that, we aren't really that good about taking on the role of a servant. Perhaps we are too used to thinking in terms of our own rights, to willingly lay down our rights aside to obey someone else, even God. Well, that doesn't feel right to a lot of people. And that's really a lot of the issue. People don't feel right. And it's contrary to human nature to follow someone you cannot see. If you think about it, it's contrary to human nature to follow someone that you cannot see. You cannot see God. You can feel God. God can speak to you in a still small voice, But you cannot see God. Like right now I'm sitting in front of this camera, but I have stuff beyond the camera that I can see. I have a sofa, I have pictures on the wall, I have things that I can see, and I can see that they're there. But with God, you can't see God. You can feel God, you can hear the still small voice, but sometimes people still need to see something. You see? And we need to get apart from that. Seeing is not always believing. And believing is not always seeing. Okay? Now, let's see here. But that's what God was asking Mary to do. To lay aside her dreams. See, this we talked about. Her dreams. What was her plans? We don't know. Dreams of her marriage. What kind of marriage did she want to have? How many kids did she want to have? How all that was going to transpire after the wedding and after. Give up all that. Okay? All the dreams of her marriage, which would now be turned upside down, to lay aside her plans for the next 20 years or so, to devote herself to raising a child. Now listen, typically, and my wife and I did this, we waited to start having a family for a year or so, to where we could just be together and we could just do things, we could have a social life, somewhat of a social life, but a social life, and we could have friends and we could do things, and we could go places, and we could, without the cumbersome things of a child. Okay? Normally that's what couples do, Mary gave that up. Mary gave that up. Now, she gave up that whole idea of waiting a couple of years or whatever the case might be, and just, traveling with Joseph, or just spending time with Joseph and getting to know Joseph, and just learning to love Joseph in a way that is healthy and productive, and she gave that up, because her whole thing was Joseph and their son, Joseph and God's son and her son. Okay, so for the next 20 years or so, she had to devote her life to raising a child, one that would definitely have special needs and challenges she couldn't even begin to predict. Now, could you imagine the whole thing? She's getting advanced in her pregnancy, and it's beginning to she's showing, and she's getting close to giving birth. Yes, her faith is there, but you got to wonder. She's thinking, what am I going to have? What am I going to have to look forward to here? What am I looking forward to? Am I looking forward to a good son, who's going to obey everything I say, and blah blah, and all this stuff? I believe she thought that. But there are those things that in our mind that says, well, what am I really looking to here? What am I going to be looking into here? What kinds of things am I going to have to address? What kinds of things am I going to have to endure? What kinds of things am I going to have to deal with here by raising this child? Now, to lay aside control over her own body, the most intimate freedom anyone has. Now, she laid aside. Now listen, she had to go, and this is something else she gave up that we don't even think about. She gave up her wedding night. Couples get married, the wedding night. It's a special night. It's a special time to be with your spouse. It's a special time. She gave it up to say yes to God. She gave it up. So think about those kinds of things that she just kind of just said no to say yes to God. Okay? Now, and in a single sentence, Mary did it. Why? Why did she give it all up? In one single sentence, she gave it up to follow God. For love of the Lord, who had made her, sustained her, and was about to redeem her and all people. Mary was overjoyed to have the chance to serve this God she loved so much. See, here is, and I might get some people mad at me, but here's what is important. God must be first. You must love God more than you love anyone else. Somebody might say, well, no, family's first. No. God is first. You must love God more than anyone else. You must love God more than you love your spouse. You must love God more than you love your kids. You must love God more than you love your parents. You must love God more than you love anyone else. And yeah, that sounds kind of harsh, but that's true. You must love God first and foremost. And God will work out the rest of the relationships. God will work it out. God's not saying give up your family, give up your kids, give up. He's saying love me first and I'll work out the rest. It's not an attitude of giving up anything. It's Him working things out in you and working things out in your family. Because you have to love Him that much. You have to love Him that much. That's what He's called us to do. Love Him that much. Now, we'll go on here. And her son Jesus echoed that love, but 1,000 times greater, when He too laid aside hopes and dreams and control of His own body in order to rescue us all from the power of sin and death. Jesus gave up control. How many times could He have said, I don't want to do this? How many times could He have ran? The Garden of Gethsemane, He was by Himself. He could have ran. He could have ran away. Could have been like Jonah and ran to the other side of the world. But He didn't. He stayed. He gave up control of His own body for you and for me. Paul described how Jesus emptied Himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form. He humbled Himself to become obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. That's Philippians 2, 7 and 8. Through His death and resurrection, Jesus served all of us in the lowliest and most wonderful way. And now He offers us too the chance to serve others just as He served in love. We must do like Mary did. Serve God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. That might mean giving up some things. And you might say to yourself, why do I have to give up something? Because God has a plan. He'll give you way more than what you're giving up. He will reward you with so much more than you're giving up. We must serve Jesus, serve God first. And as we serve God and as we serve Jesus, He then gives us the ability to and the love to serve others. Mary served God. Jesus served us. See the correlation there? Mary served God, gave up everything, her hopes and dreams to serve God. Jesus gave up His hopes and dreams and control of Himself to serve others and serve us and serve God. Ultimately to serve God, but to serve others and to serve us. We must echo that. We must be that way. And that might mean giving up something. That might mean not being the most popular person in school or being the most popular person at work or being sometimes not even being the most popular person at home. But the promise is that God will work out those relationships if you follow and love Him first. That's a challenge for you this Christmas season. Love others, love God follow God, serve others this Christmas season. So that's my challenge for you. So until next time, this is Pastor Josh. Remember, like, subscribe, and share the videos. You're my partner in ministry in this. I hope and pray that they bless you. So until next time, God bless.